Hello guys, my name is Kaz and welcome to Casual Comics. Today we'll be starting our intro to Valiant Comics segment starting with Manowar. Now many of you out there are probably wondering what is Valiant Comics, or you've seen them on the shelves and you're probably like, yeah, they got that like Bloodshot guy and stuff. So here, let me give you a quick history of Valiant before we get into it. So, in 1989, Jim Shooter, who you might be familiar with as the former editor-in-chief of Marvel, and Steven Marowski, I'm probably butchering his name, he was a lawyer, they bonded together and they formed Voyager Communications, as well as Valiant Comics as an imprint under Voyager. And in 1991, they released their first book, Magnus Robot Fighter, quickly followed up by Solar Man of the Atom, later on Harbinger number 1, which was listed on the top 10 list of Wizard magazine for a record of 8 consecutive months. It was eventually named Collectible of the Decade, followed by Raw number 0, which appeared on Wizard's top 10 list for a new record of 9 consecutive months. In 92, Shooter was given the Lifetime Achievement Award for co-creating the Valiant Universe in a ceremony that also honored, the great Stan Lee for co-creating the Marvel Universe. However, Shooter left Valiant by the end of 92. According to Morawski, Jim had a different idea as to the direction of the company and was asked to leave. 2 years later, in 94, they sold Voyager Communications to Acclaim Entertainment. You guys might remember from video games like NBA Jam, Turok, All-Star Baseball. They had a lot of games. However, in 2004, Acclaim filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. A year later, in 2005, a group of fans turned entrepreneurs bought the Valiant Comics library from Acclaim, forming Valiant Entertainment. They released the old stories and new trades, along with a few new ones written by previous editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. Later, in March of 2012, Valiant Entertainment launched the Summer of Valiant, where they announced that they'd begin publishing new monthly books based off of the original Valiant Comics Universe. None of that Acclaim nonsense. And they started with 4 titles: Manowar, Harbinger, Bloodshot, and Archie and Armstrong. And these are pretty much going to be the first 4 videos of this segment and our starting point. Now, unlike Marvel and DC, the Valiant Universe, for lack of better words, is a bit more realistic. It's supposed to be the world outside your window, like how Marvel was supposed to be originally, but now you got an Inhuman or a mutant every 2 feet, so that's not very realistic. And to be honest, they do a pretty good job of it. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into Manowar. We're going to be running over his origin, powers, ability, and his story up into the Uni arc, so not to ruin too much reading, since we only have about 6 years of stories, unlike the decades of Superman and Spider-Man books out there. Manowar's real name is Eric of Dacia. As you can tell, he comes from the land of Dacia that existed back in the time of the Romans. It would be located where modern-day Romania is, and he was next in line to be leader of his people, the Visigoths. The Visigoths were pushed out of Dacia by the Huns and made an arrangement with the Romans that they would help them fight their wars in return for their own land. Now, at this point in history, the Romans found they had no longer had a use for the Visigoths, and the 2 factions were at war themselves. And this is where the comic opens up. We meet Eric on the battlefield, where we quickly learn that he's a prodigious fighter who's very headstrong, but a little bit dense, more of the fight first, ask question later type of guy, but will keep fighting until he's the last one standing or not even standing at all. Later that night, after the battle, Eric gets warning that a Roman carrier is nearby, so him and a few of his men go to investigate. However, it is not a Roman carrier, but an alien one by a race called the Vine. It is kind of neat too, because they think is this some type of Roman trickery at first, and they've never seen this type of technology before, so they charge head first. The Vine, however, quickly defeat Eric and his men, taking the surviving men as slaves. They proceed to raid their encampment, taking many of the women and children as slaves as well. They also replace some of the human babies with Vine babies, because similar to the Skrulls in Marvel, the Vine have the ability to shapeshift. Eric then wakes up upon a Vine spaceship as a slave, forced to work the fields and tend to the plants, as the Vine are kind of a plant-worshipping species. This is where one of his captors cuts off one of his hands. Several years goes by until Eric and some other slaves get their hands on a map of the spaceship. They cause a revolt and break into the armory, where they find Shanahara, the Manowar armor. which the Vine pretty much worship as a holy artifact, and it can only be worn if you are worthy. If not, it kills you. The Vine have pretty much been taking their best generals and warriors and soldiers to it in hopes that it could be donned by one of them, but everyone who's tried has died so far. Eric, however, bonds with the armor, and it grows his hand back in the process. Now, what Shanhara does is it allows the wearer to fly, breathe in space as well as underwater, project energy blasts as well as energy weapons. Eric's go-to is a sword because of his history, but later we see that the armor is able to produce whatever weapon the wearer wants, as shown by Livewire during the Unity arc that we won't be getting into today. As mentioned earlier, it is sentient and has an onboard operating system which alerts the wearer of threats before they can even see them or sense them coming. Wearing Shanhara, Eric cuts a swath through the Vine and escapes to modern-day Rome, learning that because of space and time and being on the ship that 1600 years has passed, and pretty much everything has changed. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned that the Vine swapped out babies for some human babies? Well, they called these babies plantlings. Now, these plantlings got together and called Ninjax, an old Valiant character, to kill Eric and retrieve the holy armor of Shanhara, while the Vine on the home planet of Loam sent an invasion fleet to Earth. However, one plantling named Alexander Dorian, he didn't like this plan because he identifies himself more of a human than a Vine, since this is where he grew up and he's quite rich and he's been doing quite well for himself. And, Earth is kind of where he keeps all his stuff, so he doesn't want to see it blown up. He also states that the Vine just live to reproduce and spread and find no enjoyment in anything, unlike humans. So him, Eric, and Ninjak team up, and they end up defeating the invasion fleet. Now this prompts Eric to take the war to the Vine home planet of Loam itself. However, when he shows up, the priesthood and the military are kind of in a civil war over if the holy armor of Shanhara chose Eric and that he's their prophet, or if they should just kill him and take it because the armor is nothing more than a military weapon. Eric finds his opportunity in banding together all the slaves of the planets that the Vine have visited in a revolt against them, and this results in almost the extinction of the Vine as a race. Eric then takes the remaining Visigoths and heads to Earth. This is where we're going to end it for today, as the next story arc is the Unity arc that I mentioned earlier. I did purposely leave out a lot of character development and like a whole little side story, so when you go back and read the books yourself, you can get some surprise and your full enjoyment out of the book. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please leave a comment down below of another Valiant character that you want to see me do a video on, or any other character for the Forgotten Heroes segment. So, thank you guys very much. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys another day.